did you first think when you walked into this facility?
I thought it was in Mars. It's incredible. Yeah, it looks like a spaceship. You don't realize the magnitude of something like this, a project like this, until you see it with your own eyes.
This is the largest vertical farm in Canada. It uses the latest agricultural technology to grow fresh produce inside all year long. Cesar Capa is the head grower at Goodleaf Farms. At this 45,000 square foot facility in Guelph, Ontario, he grows baby lettuce, spinach, arugula, and an assortment of microgreens. LED lights replace the sun, and the plants receive nutrients through water rather than soil. Every aspect of this environment is controlled, from the hue of the lights to the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. The result is astounding: higher crop yields that require less space and 95% less water. And there's no need for pesticides.
Working on a farm is nothing new to you, but I imagine that this is not exactly the farm you grew up on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I grew up in a small farm in Argentina. This is completely different, but the objective is the same: is sustainability, is food security.
Canada imports most of its leafy greens from California, but recent supply chain disruptions have exposed how precarious it is to rely on produce from abroad.
We had labor disruptions, but we also had the problem that California is in the middle of an unprecedented drought. And even when the system is working perfectly, quality is really low, even in the major cities.
Lenore Newman is the director of the Food and Agriculture Institute at the University of the Fraser Valley.
By the time we get lettuce in British Columbia, in Vancouver, it's already traveled for 8 days and its shelf life is really only about 10 days. When it comes into the distributor, they usually throw away a third to 40% of what they bought. And when you take what's left home, you've only got a couple of days to make a salad max.
This is exactly what Barry Murchie hopes vertical farming will solve. He's the CEO of Goodleaf Farms and wants to rid our lives of empty shelves and mushy leaves.
So you take a look at all of those elements and you say, is there an alternative? Is there a better way? And this is an example of how technology and agriculture has merged to create an alternative that is really better in every element.
And is this something that you can taste?
Absolutely. It's really like going to your garden any day of the year and picking something fresh because it tastes like it's fresh out of your garden.
There are now hundreds of vertical farms across Asia, Europe, and North America, where real estate is scarce and there are a lot of mouths to feed. Vertical farms could also help remedy food insecurity in rural and remote parts of Canada.
These are technologies that could get more food into regions where food is very expensive and often just plain unavailable.
The technology is relatively new. Leafy greens and small fruits thrive in this type of system, but other produce still poses a challenge. And while traditional farms are vulnerable to climate change, vertical farms are at the mercy of energy prices. The lights require a lot of electricity. How sustainable these farms are depends in part on where that power comes from. Goodleaf estimates its carbon footprint is half that of a traditional farm.
Our challenge now is we just need to build more of these.
Fruits and vegetables make up only part of the average Canadian's diet. We also love to eat meat. And despite the popularity of plant-based alternatives, the world's appetite for animal protein is climbing. And it brings with it some big challenges.
The meat industry is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. It is one of the world's largest land users. This is on top of the fact that there are serious ethical concerns with animal protein. We've really focused this last 50 years on making protein cheap, and we've done that at the expense of animal welfare.
The magnitude of this dilemma has given rise to a new industry: cellular agriculture, where scientists grow animal products without the animals. At the forefront of this protein revolution is wild type.
All right, here's our small piece of wild type salmon.
This sushi-grade salmon fillet was grown entirely in a lab. Wild type co-founder Aria Elfenbein got the idea while visiting a ranch. As he watched cattle graze where a lush rainforest once was, he got to thinking.
Do we need animals to have meat? Could we just create what we consume just outside of the animal? That's kind of where it began.
When it came time to decide which protein to focus on, Aria says salmon was an early frontrunner.
Salmon is the most consumed fin fish in the US. It's also one of the most versatile fish that we consume in terms of all of the different culinary traditions.
For Ben Friedman, the head of product at Wild Type, the choice was more personal.
I grew up in the Pacific Northwest from a family that spent a lot of time salmon fishing. And just over the course of my own short lifetime, I've seen the population decline in a really incredible way. And so for me, I think of Wild Type as an opportunity to take pressure off the wild fisheries.
There are other benefits too. Wild Type salmon is free of mercury, microplastics, and other contaminants commonly found in seafood. And it only takes 4 to 6 weeks to grow a fillet like this one. In comparison, farm salmon takes about 3 years to go from egg to harvest. Lab-grown protein, or cultured meat, is an emerging technology. Toronto startup Cell Ag Tech gave us a closer look at how these cells are grown. Co-founder Valentin Fulga and his team are working on a replacement for snapper.
So what's in this little container you're holding?
What we have here is the cells. So they are growing all the time, and you can see here, for example, this cell is dividing.
The living cells are set in a nutrient-rich liquid where they grow until they run out of space.
You see here, all the surface is full of cells. It means that we can move them. They need a new home. They need a bigger home.
Scaling up this process is the biggest hurdle. For that, cells need to be grown in bioreactors, large tanks like you'd see at a brewery. It's a complex and costly process, but Wild Type and other cellular agriculture companies are forging ahead as they await regulatory approval. Like all new technology, Wild Type salmon will come at a premium, at first.
Our mission is one of greater accessibility. That's not one that we can reach if we are just selling expensive salmon.
Once the price of cellular agriculture products drops below animal-produced protein cost, then things get interesting. We're going to see large producers that are saying, well, my customers need hamburgers. I can buy this product. It's cheaper, it's healthier, it's better for the environment.
Cultured meat is not destined to replace the trillion-dollar meat industry, at least not anytime soon. But it will be an ethical and sustainable alternative for those who don't want to give up meat.
What we eat changes. 150 years ago, we ate a lot of wild game. I quite confidently do predict that in 100 years, there'll be very little animal agriculture on Earth. We'll look back at industrial slaughter and we'll say, wow, it's amazing we did that. And wow, we have a way better product.